Welcome to this episode of Dr. Ambedkar Thoughts. In this last video of the series on myths of reservation, we shall discuss another myth about the reservation policy. Many people, including the intellectual class, believe that poverty should be the basis of extending reservation. On 12 January 2019, Government of India amended Article 15 and Article 16, and through Article 15(6) and Article 16(6) provided for 10% reservation in government educational institutions and government employment to economically backward sections. This provision does not extend to the classes already covered under Article 15(4) and Article 16(4). In other words, only the poor among the upper caste can avail the benefits under this reservation. For this, the government invoked Article 46, which says 103rd Amendment will be an important amendment in the history of reservation. Why? Because the reservation provided on the basis of economic criteria has turned the entire philosophy of reservation upside down. What is the rationale behind the policy of reservation? The provision of reservation is meant to end centuries old exclusion and isolation of discriminated of the society and to ensure their representation in places of power and wealth through special provision so as to bring them at par with forward sections of the society. The 103 Amendment has turned this argument on its head. How reservation has now become a poverty elevation program instead of a mechanism to ensure representation. The reservation policy, which is class or community based, now becomes individual based. The caste is no longer the basis for backwardness. Article 15(4) and 16(4) speak of advancement and adequate representation. But this amendment provides opportunities to the already advanced and well represented, rather overrepresented sections of society. Now the question arises, if the Constitution mandates provision for SC, ST, OBC communities, is it silent about the poor among the upper caste or the poor of all classes? Not at all. There are many provisions in the Constitution like Article 38, 39, 41, 42, 43, 46 and 47, under which many remedial measures are mandated. Some measures are already in place like subsidized food, grains, ration cards, free education, Manrega. And if government is indeed serious about all poor, then it can implement programs like universal basic income. Dr. Ambedkar wanted to define the economic structure in the Constitution itself. He held that without economic justice, there cannot be political justice. He wanted the provision under DPSP to convert it into fundamental rights. This amendment also raises the doubt of constitutional validity. For example, it violates the 50% cap on reservation as decided by Honorable Supreme Court. As per the judgment of Honorable Supreme Court in Indira Sahani case, reservation cannot be provided on economic criteria. The provision of 10% reservation on economic criteria is violating this judgment. This reservation is individual centric instead of being community centric, thus is against the principle of equality. And yet there is no judgment on its constitutionality. Whenever the Honorable Supreme Court rules on this issue, it will be known whether this provision is against the principle of equality or not, whether it violates the basic structure of Constitution or not. In the past, before this, Narasimha Rao government had provided for 10% reservation on the basis of economic status in 1991. But there is a difference between the two. In 1991, the provisions of 10% reservation was made through an administrative office memorandum, assuming that the government has the authority to extend this kind of reservation. But in 2019, the 10% reservation has been provided through constitutional amendment. On 16 November 1992, in the Indira Sahani case, a 9-judge bench squashed the decision of Narasimha Rao government to extend 10% reservation on the basis of economic status. Now it remains to be seen whether this constitutional amendment violates the basic structure of the Constitution or not, whether it is against the principle of equality or not. Let us dwell a little into the history of reservation. The Constituent Assembly had also debated whether reservation was to be given on the basis of caste or on the basis of economic criteria. The ultimate decisions was in favor of caste. This was because caste is the cause of social disadvantage which results in economic disadvantages. The Constituent Assembly unanimously decided that communities that were on the margin of society for centuries, their exclusion and inclusion should be ended and they should be given adequate representation. However, there were different opinions regarding identifying such beneficiary group and the basis for their categorization. One member was of the opinion that representation is not a remedy for the progress of SC/STs and thus some economic upliftment program should be initiated for them. While another member who was supportive of economic criteria was of the opinion that the poor who are socially disadvantaged and backward should be given the benefit of reservation. Finally, the Constituent Assembly reached the decision that the social disadvantage faced because of the caste results in social and educational backwardness. The Constitution was promulgated in 1950. In 1951, Dr. Ambedkar resigned from the post of Minister of Law. Apart from personal grounds, he gave three main reasons for doing so. First, government's faulty foreign policy. Second, non-passage of Hindu Code Bill. Third, government's failure to constitute the Backward Classes Commission as per Article 340. Let us understand what is Article 340 of the Constitution. According to Article 340, a Backward Classes Commission is to be constituted to assess the condition of backward classes. Why did the Constitution mandate the formation of Backward Classes Commission? Who are the backwards? From whom Dr. Ambedkar for the first time coined the term OBC, other backward classes. The Hutton census of 1931 was the first caste-based census in India. The SC/ST groups were already identified and were given the coverage of reservation policy. The SCs were identified on the basis of untouchability faced by them and who were generally termed as Dalits. The indigenous population or the erstwhile Adivasis formed the ST group. Apart from the above groups, there was a huge community in India which did not face untouchability the way Dalits did or did not lead an isolated life, detached from the mainstream, the way Adivasi did. But it was still quite backward and at the lowest rung of the caste hierarchy, known as Shudras. The duty imposed on them by the caste system was to serve the upper caste. The community engaged in various vocations treated as lowly and with meager earnings. Socially, they were seen as lower classes and were devoid of educational and wealth opportunities. Thus, the community was socially and educationally backward. Articles 15.4 and 16.4 of the Constitution talk of socially and educationally backward classes, but the Constitution does not define them explicitly. Through Article 340, the Constitution mandates the formation of Backward Classes Commission for investigating their condition, identifying them, and suggesting remedial measures to uplift them through representation and other means so as to bring them into mainstream. The Nehru government did not find it necessary to form this commission even after the 20 months of constitutional promulgation. Dr. Ambedkar, in his speech while resigning from the post of Law Minister, had denounced this. In 1953, the then President announced the formation of such a commission, which is popularly known as Kaka Kalelkar Commission. This commission was mandated to find measures of identification of socially and educationally backward communities and to prepare an all India list of such people. It was also mandated to investigate their conditions, their adversities, and suggest ways for improvement in their condition. The report of the Kalelkar Commission came out in 1955. In its report, the Commission mentions that it was tasked to identify a class of people who could be treated as socially and educationally backward. The Commission held that the word used is class, but in present context, it can only be taken as caste. It cannot mean anything else. And the Commission felt justified in taking this meaning only. It also mentions that some well-wishers had warned them that such a meaning would enhance the caste feeling. However, the Commission concluded that the ill effects of the caste can only be removed when caste itself is made the basis of remedial measures. The Commission answers the question of who the backwards are. Clearly, those who lack adequate representation in the government services, who do not possess any natural resources or wealth, industry, those who live in kacha houses, those who are nomadic, indulge in begging, who are either unemployed or engage in jobs giving low returns, do not possess instruments to engage in high return occupations, those who are landless laborers, those who could not gain any education due to social disadvantages and lack of information, or those who fail to produce a political representative. They all are backward. In short, a community with social status far too low compared to the upper caste. The commission tried not to make a caste as the basis for the identification of backwards. It tried to dissociate backwardness from caste, but in social context of India, found it very difficult to dissociate caste from backwardness. The criteria adopted by commission to identify socially and educationally backward people are as follows. Traditionally being the lowest level of the caste hierarchy, generally low spread of education, no representation or lack of adequate representation in government services, lack of adequate representation in trade, commerce and industry. Kalelkar Commission could not dissociate poverty, backwardness and caste because both are entangled with each other in India. The Commission in its report says that the society in India mainly comprises of two classes. Upper caste term as governing class by Dr. Ambedkar and has total control over power, wealth and natural resources. The backward classes, which comprise of three subclasses SC, ST and OBC. The OBC class is further divided into two parts. Backward class under which 2399 caste were identified, most backward classes under which 837 caste were listed. Among the recommendations made by the Commission for the progress and adequate representation of backward classes, it linked the social backwardness with the lower rungs of traditional caste system. Main recommendations are as follows. Undertaking caste-wise enumeration of population in the census of 1961, reservation in government services, 25% in class 1 post, 33.5% in class 2 post, 40% in class 3 post, 40% in class 4 post. It recommended categorizing all women as members of backward class. 70% of the seats in technical and professional institutions. There were recommendations to initiate fresh programs for their economic upliftment. It also observed fixing a ceiling on land holding is a necessary principle to remove the existing social inequality in the countryside. The report should have been tabled in both the houses and discussions held, but the report was not tabled in the parliament. The Nehru government rejected the report on the ground that the basis for determining the backwardness should be poverty and not the caste. Making caste as a criterion would only strengthen the rigidity of caste system. There was no unanimity among the members of the commission on whether reservation should be based on caste or not. The report was not unanimous. There was a differences of opinion among the members. The chairperson of Kaka Kalelkar himself, if not in the report, but in a letter written to the president, expressed his opposition to the recommendations of the commission. Many people believe that he did this under pressure from the central government and the president. The government was not serious about giving representation to the backward classes. The formation of the commission was a mere formality. Listing the caste and according privileges to higher caste is a centuries old tradition in India. It started with Manusmriti, but the difference is earlier the listing of caste was done to give special privileges to well-off higher caste. Now in modern India, it is required to bring the lower caste that are poorest also at par with upper castes. In 1978, the Janata Party government came to power. On 1st January 1979, the Morarji Desai government constituted Second Backward Classes Commission under Article 340. The chairman of this commission was B.P. Mandal, a former parliamentarian from Bihar. The Mandal Commission submitted its report 2 years later on 31st January 1980. Mandal Commission in its report has categorically mentioned that caste system is the foundation of Indian society. Mandal Ayog rejected poverty and economic criteria and said that Article 340 of the Constitution clearly speaks about socially and educationally backward. The Commission was of the opinion that an economic test to decide the backward would be wrong interpretation of the Constitution. Commission pointed out that caste influences every aspect of human life. Due to the belief of purity and impurity, the upper caste have held the lower caste in bondage for centuries. The caste system has controlled and restricted life of a person. Because of this, the lower caste have remained socially, educationally, politically, and economically backward, while the upper caste are ahead in all these fields. This has caused a permanent division in India. These are the very reason why caste system has been responsible for social backwardness, which in turn causes backwardness in other sectors as well. It further added that under the current circumstances in India, equality of opportunity alone would damage the concept of social justice. Only equality of results can achieve social justice. To identify the backward classes, Mandal Commission used 11 indicators. There were 4 social indicators, each carrying 4 marks. There were 3 educational indicators, each carrying 2 marks. There were 4 economic indicators, each carrying 1 mark. It is worth noting that the Commission gave highest weightage to social indicators and least weightage to economic indicators. This clearly indicates that the social and educational status in fact decides your economic status. The Commission also cognizance of the fact that there are socially and educationally backward classes among non-Hindus also, whose condition is similar to backwards among the Hindus. These religions did not have the caste system, and thus Commission did not keep caste as a criteria to identify backwards among them. But the Commission did not take poverty as a criteria. To solve this problem, after due thought, the Mandal Commission recommended 2 criteria to identify non-Hindus backwards: the touchables who got converted to non-Hindu religion, the members of non-Hindus religion engaged in traditional occupation like washerman, barber, carpenter, darji, taili, etc., which have been included in the list of backward classes in the Hindu religion. Based on this criteria, the Mandal Commission prepared a list of backward classes which had 3743 caste, which accounted for 52% of India's population. The major recommendations of Commission as follows. The scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes have been given 22.5% reservation in proportion to their population. In light of this, other backward classes should be given 27% reservation in all government and technical institutions. For the cultural upliftment of the population left behind the social mainstream, there should be a special arrangement for education in the areas with higher density of backward classes. In this, special attention should be paid towards professional education. There should be special arrangement for coaching of students admitted in technical and professional educational institutions through reservations. P.S. Krishnan, who played crucial role despite the recommendations of the Kaka Kalelkar Commission and the Mandal Commission, the central government obstinately shut its eyes and closed its heart to the backward classes till 1990. I cannot think of any Prime Minister in the history of independent India other than Shri V.P. Singh who could have taken a positive and conclusive decision on this. The V.P. Singh government announced implementation of Mandal Commission recommendations on 7th August and on 13th August 1990 issued an office memorandum providing 27% reservation to backward classes in government employment and admission into government educational institutions. The Mandal Commission report recommends that in a democracy, all classes should have equal claim to the places of power and there should be participation of all. A reality which denies this 52% of the population, immediate measures are required to rectify this. This is what was meant by Dr. Ambedkar when he wrote that a democracy is truly a democracy when the governing class, which is composed of upper caste in India, loses its capacity to continually hold the positions of power. The Mandal Commission recommended 27% reservation to the 52% population of OBC classes from both Hindu and non-Hindu religion because of ceiling of reservation as decided by Supreme Court. There was a widespread opposition to Mandal Commission in India, especially in North India, maybe because the state of Tamil Nadu was already providing 50% reservation in proportion to the population. After Narsimha Rao government came to power in 1991, another office memorandum was issued on 25th September, modified earlier memorandum. New office memorandum said that 10% vacancies in government posts and services under the Government of India shall be reserved for other economically backward sections of people who are not covered by any existing scheme of reservation. A 9-judge bench of Honorable Supreme Court struck down this 10% reservation on 16th November 1992. In his judgment, Honorable Supreme Court said, it goes without saying that in Indian context, social backwardness linked to educational backwardness and out of them together and both of them together lead to poverty, which in turn breeds and perpetuates the social and economic disadvantage. They feed upon each other, constituting a vicious circle. The Honorable Supreme Court also held that no single criterion, whether social, educational, or economic, can be taken as a basis of deciding backwardness in the complex caste-based social system of India. There is a huge so-called intellectual class in India which believes that reservation should be on the basis of economic criteria or poverty. Now the question arises, is there anything in the constitution pertaining to poor among the upper caste, or for what matter pertaining to poor among the upper caste or poor in general from all castes? Let us first understand in India who the poor are. In a paper published by Ashwini Deshpande and Rajiv Ramchandran in Economic and Political Weekly, the authors have analyzed the IHDS survey data from 2005 to 2012 related to the poor as defined by government, the BPL category, by breaking it into castes. This has been used to understand the caste disparities among the poorest BPL sections of society. The 10% reservation is based on economic criterion. Hence, the analysis uses the economic indicators to understand the caste disparities. First, income and wealth. The data reveals that in 2005, the annual income of poor Dalit was 76% of the income of poor Brahmin and was 56% of the income of poor upper caste. In other words, if the annual income of poor Brahmin was 100 rupees, then the income of poor Dalit was only 76 rupees. Similarly, if the annual income of a poor upper caste person was 100 rupees, then the income of poor Dalit was only 56 rupees. In 2012, the poor Dalit's position saw further deterioration. His annual income was just 73% of the income of poor Brahmin. In other words, the gap between poor Brahmins and poor Dalits' annual income rose by 3% in favor of poor Brahmins. In 2005, the absolute gap between poor Brahmin and poor Dalit was 31% of poor Dalit's income. In 2012, the same gap was roughly 36% of poor Dalit incomes. When we look at wealth disparities in terms of land ownership, productive agriculture land ownership, the disparity is even sharper. In 2005, 59% of poor Brahmins owned an acre or more land. In 2012, 91% of poor Brahmins owned an acre or more land. In case of upper caste, the figure rose from 39% in 2005 to 75% in 2012. The least increase in the land holding is seen in case of poor Dalits. It rose from 39% in 2005 to 48% in 2012. This clearly shows that in terms of wealth, all Dalits is far more poor compared to a poor Brahmin, and his condition is worse. The paper also reveals disparities in self-perception of poverty among these three groups. In 2012, the IHDS asked all BPL households about their own perceptions of their economic status, whether they think they are poor or middle class or comfortable. The answers were very revealing. Only 40% of poor Brahmins perceived themselves as poor, while 77% of poor Dalits perceived their families to be poor. Among all Dalits, 57% perceived themselves as poor. According to the authors, this difference in self perception is so because, in spite of being poor, the social status of a Brahmin is superior. But for poor Dalit, apart from being poor, the social status is at the lowest. Not only this, the Dalits who are not poor also perceive themselves as poor due to the same social reality. Their social status is the lowest, and that makes them perceive their condition as bad. A similar pattern can be seen in case of middle class and comfortable families also. Second, education. In year 2005, the average duration of education of an adult from a poor Brahmin household was 3.46 years. The average in case of poor upper caste was 3.22 years. But in case of poor Dalits, this average was just 2.36. And for all Dalits, it was 3.15 years. This implies that a poor Brahmin with average length of education of 3.46 years spends more years in school compared to all Dalits with an average duration of education of 3.15 years. By 2012, the spread of education increased in all classes, but the gap remained wide. There was an increase by 2 years in duration of education in case of poor Brahmins, by 4.21 years in case of upper caste, but in case of poor Dalits, the increase was only by 1.28 years. In this paper, the authors have also thrown light on which classes have more opportunities to get government employment or gain admission in educational institutions through reservation. For this, the authors analyze the proportion of such poor families in which have members with minimum 12 years of education, as such persons have a better chance of getting government employment. In general, the classes with better spread of education have better chances of government employment. In 2005, 22.81% Brahmins household had at least one person who was educated till 12th grade. This proportion was zero for both poor upper caste and Dalits in 2005. By 2012, among Brahmin households, this proportion increased to 39.37%. Among poor upper caste households, this proportion reached to 16.48%. But in case of poor Dalits, it went up to 11.71%. Based on above, the authors conclude that the poor Brahmin shall be the most benefited by 10% reservations, as they have higher proportion of people with required education and there is a wide gap with other classes. Employment among different caste groups. From 2005 to 2012, the number of casual workers among all caste groups has dropped, but the maximum decrease of 14% is observed among Brahmins from 85% to 71%. Among upper caste, it decreased from 96% to 89%, a drop of 7%. While among the Dalits, it dropped by 5% from 97 to 92%. In fact, the proportion of casual workers among all Dalits is more than that among poor Brahmins. For all poor, government employment remains a distant dream. It is important to note that currently in government employment, there are 1% poor Brahmins and 1% poor Dalits. This is quite intriguing. Both are equal in government employment, but on other economic indicators, there is a wide gap between poor Brahmins and poor Dalits. How has this been possible? This has been possible only because of reservation in government employment. The analysis among different caste groups based on IHDS data shows that in India, the condition of not only poor Dalits but also all Dalits in terms of income and wealth or employment or education is worse than that of poor Brahmins. Let us look at ease of access to employment among different caste groups. Poor Brahmins far ahead of not only poor Dalits but all Dalits in the fields of wealth, education, and employment. Equality of poor Dalits with poor Brahmins has been made possible because of policy of reservation for the Dalits in government employment. Now let us see poor belonging to which class will benefit the most from 10% reservation based on economic criteria for general category announced by the government. Is 10% reservation helping really poor among the general category? According to memorandum dated 13/1/2019, beneficiaries are annual household income below rupees 8 lakh, includes all family members from sources. The economic limit given for this reservation covers 98.26% Brahmins, 97.93% upper caste, and 97.75% SC families falling under the IHDS surveys report income less than economic weaker sections limit. Another estimate indicate that in 2015, 98% of all households earn an annual income of 6 lakh or less. According to the author, for the purpose of reservation comprises household with an annual income less than, as per provision prescribed for 10% EVS reservations, the residential plot should be less than 1000 square feet in area, but as per 2012 NSSO report, more than 20% of richest Indians reside in houses with floor area of just 500 square feet. As per socio-economic caste census 2011 in India, there are only 8.25% rural households whose income is more than 10,000 rupees. It appears that the provision of 10% EWS reservation for poor among the general category. But from the above facts, it seems that it is a cruel joke played on the really poor among the general category. It is obvious from the IHDS survey that the poorest of India are poor Dalits and Adivasis. Thus, keeping this most poor Dalit Adivasi out of the ambit of EWS reservation, it is in fact against the principle of equality, it is against the principle of social justice. Jai Bhim.